I said yes. Now it says we're live. Lee, did you know that?
Oh, okay.
We're
Fantastic.
actually live. So, but because
Very
I never,
exciting.
it is exciting, but it's not exciting until I can confirm it, right? Otherwise, we're going to be like a kid running down, like on Christmas Day, running down to open up the toys, and there's no toys there, right? So now what I do is I go to my profile on Twitter. I scroll down my profile on Twitter. I don't see it yet. It usually takes about 5 more seconds to come out.
Okay.
Now what I do is I see it. We are live. I can confirm we're live.
All right, exciting.
It is exciting, and we're also, I think, live on YouTube. So
excellent.
It is. It's exciting. I've never been live twice like that before, right? Live 3 times because I actually am live, when I'm not on Periscope and YouTube either. So now what I do, this is my ritual. My ritual before I begin, right when I begin, I've got my music. You listen to my music, right? You like my music?
I can.
Now I turn down my music, and we did it. Thank you so much, Lee, and thank you everybody for joining us.
All right.
And I see Trying to Get News is here, so thank you very much. / our Periscope guy. That is true. That is me. And we've got another Periscope guy with us today, which is Lee. So thank you so much, Lee. This is exciting.
It is very exciting. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be with you and your excellent audience. And I look forward to a great conversation. And I hope that I'm sure that your viewers will have lots of awesome questions, because I prefer to answer questions than just go on and drone. But I am going to start by droning a little bit just to introduce myself. You and I have spoken some, but just for some of your viewers who may not be familiar with the stuff I've done the last few years, excuse me, I wrote a column at Tablet magazine. I just had an article that came out yesterday called "The 30 Tyrants," which is speaking about what I describe as the pro-China oligarchy in the United States, comparing it to the end of the Peloponnesian War. I know you're very interested in Thucydides, Adam. So I thought you would find this especially compelling. So of course, at the end of the Peloponnesian War, after Athens lost the 27-year-long conflict, there was a pro-Sparta oligarchy installed in Athens. It was a cruel and vicious tyranny known as the 30 Tyrants. And so the story that I did for Tablet yesterday was saying this is a way to understand the United States, how the American corporate, political, and cultural elite, in which I of course include the media, has chosen their priorities and has chosen their loyalties. It's not necessarily to China. It's to the relationship between the United States and China, from which they draw their power, wealth, and prestige. The United States is less important to them than this relationship, again, through which they draw money and power. This is actually, so I'm doing a lot of work on not China per se, but the U.S.-China relationship, and how that's basically fed the American elite certainly since the 90s, certainly since the Clinton administration in 1994, when Bill Clinton decided to de-link human rights from trade practice. And that marked something very novel there in the history of the United States foreign policy as well as trade policy. So this is a part of my ongoing work, which really started with the plot against the president, describing the corruption in our elite. The plot against the president was published in October 2019. The subtitle is "The True Story of How Congressman Devin Nunes Uncovered the Biggest Political Scandal in U.S. History." And Amanda Milius, an excellent filmmaker, turned that into a documentary. It's really terrific. I hope that your viewers, if they haven't had a chance to look at that yet, will look at her film, and we'll also pick up my book, which is also now in paperback. But this was a specific look, focusing in particular on what the FBI had done starting in late 2015 to target the Donald Trump campaign for presidency on behalf of Hillary Clinton. Right? We know we know very specifically now exactly what happened. They were worried about Hillary Clinton's emails going public. The problem wasn't that they were classified. The problem was presumably there was a whole bunch of dirt on them. The Clinton campaign was very worried about it, and so was the FBI. So that was the project. And this is why people say it's worse than Watergate, because in Watergate, what happened was the committee to re-elect President Richard M. Nixon hired a bunch of former spooks, CIA and FBI people. In this case, the people who were working on behalf of the Clinton campaign were still employed, were still being paid by American taxpayers, by you and me. So again, that was a specific look at the FBI. The next book after that is called The Permanent Coup: How Enemies Foreign and Domestic Targeted the American President. And that dealt some with Russiagate, but also came through Ukraine Gate, which now we have a very clear sense of what happened with the whole idea of Ukraine Gate. What happened is that news of Joe and Hunter Biden's corruption in Ukraine was getting out, and this was one way to block it, to turn this corruption, this Biden family corruption, around on Donald Trump. And that led into the impeachment. I go through the details there, what the Bidens were up to in Ukraine and how they flipped the entire story around and hung it on Donald Trump. And that's what turned into impeachment. The book also deals with, in the concluding chapters, it deals with the onset of the coronavirus, how the coronavirus was weaponized to target. This is something that needs to be made clear, that I do not say, and many people do not say, that coronavirus is a hoax. Obviously, it is a real respiratory disease. What I mean by weaponized was that it was used in many cases to target Trump supporters and benefit Trump's opponents. For instance, a famous example that many people know is that when the city of New York closed down or started targeting Orthodox Jews and would not let them gather for prayer, but weeks later they not only allowed, facilitated, but they celebrated a large Black Lives Trans Matter parade. So that's what I mean by weaponizing the coronavirus. It was used to advantage some people and disadvantage others, and now we see the final tallies. I mean, the amount of money that the oligarchs amassed over the last year, and the number of small businesses that were destroyed, and the ones that weren't destroyed by the coronavirus, many of them were finished off by the George Floyd riots. So that's really how the book concludes, leading into the 2020 elections.
And then you and I were talking a few days ago, we were texting, right? A few days ago, about what you're going to do next, if there's going to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
Want there to be a trilogy, or are you going to spend more time kind of exploring and pursuing kind of the Chinese Communist Party infiltration of the U.S.?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way I would put it, I mean, both of those are really interesting subjects, but I would just say, look, the Chinese Communist Party is a big concern. I know you've had Darren, you've spoken to Darren Beatty before, and Darren, anyone who follows Darren's Twitter feed knows that Darren makes a very strong case. The root problem with America is the corruption of America's elite. I agree 100%. So the problem is not the Chinese Communist Party per se. It's a disgusting and vile institution, no doubt about it. The problem is the American elites who have made arrangements with the Chinese Communist Party from which they draw, again, their wealth, power, and prestige. So that's really what interests me, right? I'm not a sinologist. I don't speak the language. What I understand now is, what I am a careful student is the corruption of our elite classes, and how much of this, I'd say that one of the constants through my work is focusing on the media. This is something that, I mean, I've been a working member of the press for, I'm 58, for 35 years at least. My father was a retired journalist. My grandfather was in the press. My great-grandfather was he was a typesetter for the New York Daily News. So it's something I'm very familiar with. So that's really my entry into all of these different things. The other book, to sort of cap off what I'm thinking of as the Coup trilogy, The Plot Against the President and the Permanent Coup. That's a fascinating and important book, and I definitely want to do that. I think right now, though, there's so much more information coming out right now about the election and other matters. I think over the next few months, certainly over the next year, we're going to have a much clearer idea of the different things that happened during the lead up to the 2020 elections and during the course of the elections and its immediate aftermath as well.
So I want to go way back because you've said so much, and it's also interesting to me. So yesterday, but you know, we had a conversation, I guess, around 6 months ago, and we were talking about my own kind of conspiracy theories, maybe. But how I'm trying to chronicle the fastest roll of power in history, and we were discussing that, and a lot of that is actually
great. It's a great phrase. That's an enduring phrase. I see people quote it all the time. It's a very important, enduring phrase. Congrats on it. It's great.
Yeah. Do you know I get
and accurate? Yeah.
I get probably at least 3 or 4 mentions a day, and I subscribe to academia.com or whatever it is, academia, and because I'm very interested in Roman history and Greek history and Hellenic history, but I also get all those notices that your name was mentioned in this and this and this, and just out of curiosity, I always go to them because I'm hoping it's not like one of those auto ethnography type of PhD type of papers. I don't want to be in those. And a lot of it is quoting my Twitter feed. It's kind of weird, but a lot of it is quoting like the fastest roll up of power in history. And I really don't want credit for that because I think about it Thucydides. I've listened to Thucydides. I've read probably about 5 different translations of it. Right now, I'm going through Donald Kagan's kind of explanation about how the history of it has been kind of revised a little bit out of political convenience, the Thucydides trap, and all this other type of nonsense. But that's how I actually came up with another phrase that I like even better. I like tyrannies always turn inwards. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, this is, one of the ways that, I mean, I should say when I was describing my work, one of the things that I should say is that up until about 2018, the focus of my work was on foreign policy. I'd lived in Cairo for a while. I'd lived in Lebanon for a while and Jerusalem for a few months. And I reported in the region frequently for about a decade after 9/11. And so my focus had been on the Iran. The years 2014 and 2015 had been on the Iran nuclear deal. So I understood how the Obama administration's campaign messaging worked, how they spoke to the press, how they sold their messages. My point is that yes, in a sense, we're dealing with people who don't really have a foreign policy. We're dealing with people who has a domestic policy, and thus it's not that surprising when we see how many people from the national security establishment want to reprogram the war on terror now to target Americans here at home. Tragically, none of this should be surprising. The war on terror is so corrupt.
I was expecting
the arrangements. Yeah.
Can I tell you this?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of questions and I want to get to
why?
them.
Why? No, why were you expecting it?
Okay, I came out when I was very young. I knew exactly what I wanted to do basically for a living. I had a life career path, right? And I knew I wanted, before I even knew what Wall Street was, I knew I wanted to go on Wall Street, right? And I grew up at a very good time in a very good place. I grew up in Manhattan in the 60s and 70s. I don't remember the 60s. Yeah, I think we discussed it. I grew up in the 70s, mostly on the Lower East Side, and there was always protests going on. And one of the phrases I just remember so much, and I still think about it, is, I was reading Martin Luther King at the time, and I like speeches, so I was reading speeches, and even as a kid, right? And I remember reading a quote from one of his discussions, and so I can't give it the attribute that I'd like to give it, but where he said, "Beware the militarization of the police." Right.
Yeah.
And I've always thought about that. And every time I would see weapons in Iraq, and we would see them kind of distantly, right? You would see them kind of far off. You didn't know what they were, but you knew bad things were happening. I was like, these weapons are going to come home.
Well, one of the things,
they're going to run out of people to blow up overseas,
right?
And then they're going to do it over here. It was kind of obvious.
Right. One of the telling signs, I think, this must have been, I can't remember exactly when the Boston Marathon bombing was, but when you saw the mayor and police chief shut down Boston and basically militarize the streets of Boston, that gave a pretty good indication. This was in violation of all sorts of civil liberties. And that gave a pretty good indication. You're right, that this stuff was heading back home. And look, there's something about it too. We saw in the aftermath of 9/11, there's a point I make in a recent piece. We saw the two important strands. We saw the war on terror, and then the onset of the massive illegal surveillance of U.S. citizens. So it seems that it was always inevitable that these two strands were going to entwine at some point. And now it appears they have.
I was expecting it for another reason also. I come out of Wall Street, right? And I'm fortunate that I don't come out of Wall Street anymore, right? Well, I came out of Wall Street. I think about Wall Street as my alma mater, but then I have other alma maters. Graduate schools were Insperity and Trident, my investments there. But I have felt the pressure from shareholders of demanding sequentially improving earnings. And I knew, there's kind of a moral and ethical toll that these things take.
Yeah.
And I said, all these defense manufacturers, they're going to start, every time a president comes in, they always say, we're going to take away your gun. And then the stocks shoot up, right? And gun sales explode, or at least gun sales go up. And I was like, it's in their best interest. The fiduciary obligation that they have is to lobby to sell more guns. And, so none of this really surprises me, but I'm in admiration of your work. And a lot of people.
Thanks. That's very kind.
It was an excellent article, and you've done something, and some other people have as well. So I want to kind of assemble everybody, right? I think of myself as Thucydides. Do you know that? And I think of this. This is my Peloponnesian War, and I spend a lot of time trying to chronicle it and assemble it and all of its intricacies. And you've been very, very helpful to me.
I'm glad to hear it.
Because I feel that I don't know what the definitions of these things are, so I'm going to go by Darren Beatty's kind of definition, I guess, which is it's a color revolution here. Yeah.
Right. I think that's a very good way to put it. I think that's and look, this is the point that I made in the Permanent Coup, second book in the Coup series. But look, it's not Donald Trump is on the cover. I can show you the book is somewhere. I'll show it to you later. The book is not real. The coup is not really about Donald Trump. The coup is about hacking away at the foundations of the republic. That's what it is, and that's why I call it the permanent coup. It's not just look. It's terrible. It's terrible what the country went through during the 4 years of serial campaigns targeting Donald Trump, because it's the country finally that truly suffered. And so, that's what's going on. I 100% agree. It's a color revolution, and the target is the masses of the American people. It's more than half the country, right? Because the people who are putting on this coup, it's a very small percentage of Americans, right? Maybe I've heard people say, I don't know, 2%. I think probably even that's large. We're looking at bureaucracy.
Oh no, I interrupted. Yeah. I'm sorry. I interrupted. No. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, I was just saying. Yeah, I think that's it. It's a color, right? It's a color revolution.
And the last refugee, Sundance on Twitter.
Yeah.
The day of the, and I'll find it right here. I'll find a clip of it. The day of Hillary's announcing, she never even conceded defeat. She just said, all she said was, I didn't win. She never said I lost, right? And that day she was wearing, and the last refugee Sundance, I was at the gym, because I'm always at the gym, and I was running, because I'm usually running. And I remember I do my Twitter when I'm at the gym, right? And I remember him saying, look, this is what.
How disappointed you feel, because I feel it too.
I'm going to take out that comment so everyone can see the whole thing. So now we're going to go back there, okay? Now watch this. We're only going to watch it for a second.
I know how disappointed you feel because I feel it too. And so do tens of millions.
What color is she wearing?
Purple.
Okay, now watch this.
I can't recall. Wasn't it?
What? Watch this.
Was it? I thought it was purple. Let's go.
What? Yeah, it was. What?
I know how disappointed you feel because I feel it too. And so do tens of millions of Americans who invested their hopes and dreams.
Vice President Kamala Harris, former First Lady Michelle.
Okay, so now we're going to see 2020. Watch this. This is 2020.
Okay.
Vice President Kamala Harris, former First Lady Michelle Obama, and 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, don purple, a color used traditionally.
Is that crazy?
Yeah. Wait, what were they going to say? Used traditionally for what?
Vice President Kamala Harris, former First Lady Michelle Obama, and 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, don purple, a color used traditionally as a symbol of bipartisanship, a mix of Republican red and Democratic blue for Inauguration Day. The color also has historically symbolized nobility, and was a color favored by the suffragettes, in addition to white. The color was chosen by suffragettes in 1908, according to the
And then it goes on. Did you know that? Did you know purple?
No, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So
no, I knew that. I knew the older political history of purple, but I didn't know about this. I just said about the bipartisan. Yeah.
Yeah, forget about the older history, because a lot of people are familiar with it. It was an expensive dye, blah blah blah.
Right.
But there was an orange revolution. There's been a red, a green.
Yeah.
You can give a lot of properties to colors, right? But they're it's clear what they were doing when you kind of collapse the two, 2016 and 2020. I mean, they're just laughing at us. It's really what it feels like. Purple is like their thing. So if you look at Biden's ties or what other people are wearing, you will see consistently, because I look for these things, right? You'll see purple. And I'm telling you, I'm not cute. I am not into that type of stuff. I'm not looking for hidden meanings, and I'm not getting into the role player game of it. I'm just saying it is what it is, and it's consistent with Darren Beatty's color revolution. It's consistent with what Sundance identified, and it's very consistent with what you said, because it gives some type of it's almost like a Roman flag being planted, or a flag on the moon. There is some type of a shared meaning that they have. Yes,
I mean, clearly, look, I mean, if you take them at their word, the bipartisanship, I mean, obviously, they overran half of the country's voters. But insofar as, what people say, which I think we've seen a lot more evidence of this over the last 4 years, people who said before, it's just a uni-party. They all believe the same thing. The stuff that they're fighting for, these are minor skirmishes have been very small, very tiny yard markers. That appears to be the case. So insofar as there does seem to be a consensus among the establishment that's held both by Democrats and the Republican establishment, yes, that would seem to be the case. So again, the idea of bipartisanship, if we're talking about an establishment, that seems true.
And before we get into some questions, because there's a lot here, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, including yours, we're talking about that, right? When I think of you, and when I think of Amanda, who did the movie on your book, and when I think of Jack Posobiec, and I think of a whole bunch of other people, Alan Bukhari, right? Everyone's been very helpful to me, because you guys are really chronicling this moment. And I don't think there will be historians in 10 years looking back and properly reporting what's happening now. You can see that the media is stamping history. They're in history right now the way they want to be reported in a few years. Once we can no longer defend real history, we'll be inundated with fake history.
I mean, you can see how the process moves now. right? I mean, you have fact checkers, including one very prominent fact checking department at the Washington Post. And we know how this works on different search engines. So people who are looking for facts find these things that go all the way to the top. And if you want information, if you at least want another perspective, it's going to be very hard to find. So yes, I understand that a lot of the work that I've done the last several years, it has absolutely no effect on what people, for the most part, on what people on the center left are thinking or believe, which I find astonishing, because the number of things you have to believe for that to be the case. Look, you said that you grew up on the Lower East Side as a kid in the 60s and 70s, as did I. And, and here's one thing I don't remember from the left of the 60s and 70s. I don't remember a profound admiration for the FBI and the CIA, right? So these are the things that you have to, these are the things, I mean, exactly. So what's happened over the last several years? And this is why, one of the things that I'm interested in is saying, look, when we talk about the left now, when we're talking about the press, and when we're talking about people who are flying the left-wing banner, these are not leftists, right? These are people who are inhabiting an empty shell, right? These are people who are not interested in working people. These were all hallmarks of the left: interested in the working man, interested in labor unions, worried about the national security state. But now they embrace all these things. What is Donald Trump for wanting to protect American jobs? He's a racist, right? So, I mean, look, you can dislike Donald Trump, but the idea that Donald Trump is automatically a racist because he wants to protect American jobs, so this is from the left. No, the real left-wing perspective is we should open up the borders to all sorts of illegals who come in to make the things that rich people want to do easier. That's the genuine left-wing perspective. And the working people out in the middle of the country, they can eat it.
So I'll tell you something really interesting, because we're the same age, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are the same age as us. I'm 54. You're 58. You grew up on the Upper West Side, right?
No, I grew up on 9th between 3rd and 4th. Then we moved up to 96th.
Because we were talking about Leshko's and Veselka. I remember that. We were talking about all that, right? And I don't think about Trump that much, right? I try and, I'm trying to chronicle, so I'm really not trying to, I appreciate you guys, but I really don't think of Trump. What I think of, and even with Alam's book and with your book and with the movie that came out of, that was the result of it as well, is you and I remember when they lied us into Iraq. Do you know what I mean? And you and I remember when they used to tell us that the alternative minimum tax was a tax to hit the rich. Remember that? Right. It was like everywhere. We're going after this is the alternative minimum tax. It's not going to affect the middle class, not going to affect the upper middle class. And we remember, the media bombarding us, saturating us with stories about Iraq, and that they were days away from mushroom clouds, and it was insane. And I've been waiting to get out of that war for 19 years now.
Well, I'll say one thing that that I was in New York on 9/11. That's when months after, that's when I moved to Egypt, and that's when I wrote my first book called The Strong Horse: Power, Politics, and the Clash of Arab Civilization. So I should say and be honest about this. At first, I was supportive not only of Iraq, but I was supportive of democracy promotion in the Middle East. It was my pardon me.
I'm for war. Look,
what I'm going to say is, being there, understanding, and this is why I think that Darren is absolutely right about the way he perceives lots of things is correct. The whole idea that we're promoting democracy, and this is one of the whole things about now. You see tweets from Mitt Romney and Mitch McConnell talking about how they must respect Alexander Navalny. Look, I don't really have a stake in it, right? All human beings should be treated well. I have no idea what he did and whether or not he belongs in jail. I know this, though. We have serious problems in this country, right? We have problems with violations of civil liberties. We have problems with unconstitutional actions. We have problems with all sorts of people breaking the law all the time, and they break it with impunity.
There's no opposition. It used to be when people ask me if I'm angry with when people ask me, because I'm writing things and I do go crazy sometimes on Twitter, and who I'm upset with, I really don't mention names too much because I don't want to get into any combat. But it's usually, I can tell you this, it's kind of the National Review type of conservatives and the college Republicans a lot, because the National Review conservatives have always said that they're kind of like they're constitutionalists, right? And here we've seen all these intrusions into our rights.
Yeah, there's no such thing as living in Lebanon. I learned one very important thing. The Lebanese have an extremely beautiful constitution. I mean, it's not just generous, but it's also skeptical of human nature the way it should be, and especially Lebanon with its various religious sects. So it's a beautiful document. You know who pays attention to it? No one. Constitutions mean nothing, and that also includes the U.S. Constitution. These are pieces of paper that depend on the manners and mores of the citizens whose actions it is supposed to guide. If those people no longer believe these things, if these people turn around and say, you know what, I think we're going to use the apparatus of the national security establishment, everything from drones to facial recognition software to the hostage rescue team at the FBI, I think we should use that against Americans. The Constitution's irrelevant, right? So the people who are going around talking about the Constitution, they need to bear down a little bit and see what's been going on the last few years, and then figure out why they're irrelevant.
And the other ones that I really can't stand are the college Republican crowd, because all they do, and Trump never should have associated with them. I know he wanted to kind of diffuse his message and get it out there, but I don't think that was helpful because it really didn't articulate any of his policies. But if you go to their websites and you listen to them, they're always about like socialism, how it's evil, but they don't have any philosophical or really any political system view of anything. It's really just kind of it feels like a solicitation, right? It feels
yeah. I mean, you and I grew up at a time when, well, first of all, I mean, the Republican Party had the Nixon problem, right? But then even as the Nixon problem faded away, you had Republicans consider their glory moment, which was the Reagan years. But look, for the most part, can you imagine seriously, as a kid growing up and your role model is George Will? I mean, nothing wrong with George Will, but I mean, these are pretty square cats. And the idea that this is what teenagers want to be. I mean, okay, it was the subject of a TV show. What was the Michael J. Fox show on Alan Keaton? And it's funny like that. But the idea, this is what you're supposed to be. Hang on, man, come on.
And we're going to get there's a lot of questions here, so we really do have to get to the questions. But
that's exciting.
When I think about the anti-Trump movement, I don't really think about Trump, right? I really don't. And and you do, because you've had to kind of capture, kind of like embody a movement. So you really needed kind of a way of kind of portraying a larger movement through this one person, right? For me,
it's because the American people were targeted through this one person. You know, Trump is in many ways. I mean, people are right to say he's a narcissist and whatever. And this is the Trump that we remember from our childhood in New York. But he was right about one thing. It's like, it's not, they're not really coming after me. They're going after you, and I'm just in the way. That's accurate, right? Trump is the vehicle through which the establishment targeted the American public, not just Trump supporters. Look, I mean, no one is fighting here for people who want to defend the FBI. Hey, you don't know what you're doing. You're defending guys who want to use facial recognition software and put you in jail. I'm not defending them. I don't care. They're going to have to figure this out on their own at some point. But the fact is, it's not just Trump supporters they're going after. This is about the country. It's about the foundations of the republic.
Yeah, I got one other thing to say, right? And then we got to get is when people think about this militarization of the police, and the kind of I guess this car chase scene against white supremacists and whatever that is. You know what I think in my head? They're gonna go against anybody who's about to complain about taxes and about a very hostile regime. And the New York Times and Washington Post or whoever it was, I know it was NPR, and I've got all the articles in my chronicle, has started calling Black people and Latino people and so on, and all of our brothers and sisters, right? They've started calling them multiracial white.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw it. That's how they're referring to this guy Enrique Tarrio. I mean, I'm half Puerto Rican. My late mother was Puerto Rican. I was born in Puerto Rico. So yeah, but this happens all the time. It's like you don't identify politically. You're not. I have a whole bunch of friends from Lebanon and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, that was your big mistake. You should have come to the United States full of grievance and started screaming at people and demanding stuff from them, and they would have handed it to you. But instead, you come here and you say you love the country, and they don't trust you.
You might have an advantage over me, though. You might be able to talk your way out of the camp. You might be able to throw that. I've got nothing. My family's been here for a long time. We're about as white as it gets. There's no place. Maybe I'm going to have to look like 500 years. I don't, and my family tree doesn't go that far back to find like any other type of lineage in there. But you can do it. You can get out. I'll be waving goodbye to you with a little tear.
There's not going to be any camps. There's not going to be any trains. Nothing like that's ever going to happen.
Oh, there's going to be camps. Have I been right about everything? Have I been right about everything? There's going to be camps. There has to be, because you can't just do it. You can't just kind of segregate a population. Media. You have to. If you take and I want to get to these questions, but if you listen to the rhetoric that's being used by Antifa and being used by a very hostile and progressive party, it's very genuine in that they truly believe that they're fighting World War III. And
we should talk some other time. Well, first offline, and then we'll figure out how we present it online. But the numbers aren't great for them. The numbers aren't great. I'll just leave it like that.
Okay, and I definitely see a counter.
Look, things are going to get very, very bad here. There's no doubt about it. Things are already very, very bad here.
But that's what your article is about the 30 oligarchs. Things got very bad. I did Periscope 2 days ago, and I played for everybody Chapter 3, Book 2 of Thucydides, the Peloponnesian War, where we discussed the Hellenic civil wars that were going on, and what a horrible time it was in human history, right? Everyone killing each other, and bad things happen. And particularly, and it's a common coming down here, but particularly when the left, and I suppose the right as well, have chosen to side with our enemies to give them some type of additional political capital.
Yes, I think that's a good way to put it. It's almost like a strategic depth, and that is how our elite regards the Chinese Communist Party. It's strategic depth. It's the wind in their sails. Again, that's where their power, money, and prestige comes from.
All you now. It's all you. We did it. Okay, I talked my way out. So, Lexusi, thank you so much for being here. And I like that you've now chosen an orange, right, for that profile picture. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And I'm very curious about this. Lexusi asks, it seems that much of this corruption is out in the open. And do you think they care that we know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the point is that we should know. Because that's, I wrote a piece a few weeks ago talking about it.
But do you think the elites, your adversaries, the people who are adversarial, the coup people, do you think that they care that there's visibility?
They want people to know. Look, at a certain point, when we were looking at the different people who went out wearing masks, you have Gavin Newsom, you have Nancy Pelosi, you had the mayor of Philadelphia. You have what? You have Chris Cuomo, all these different people who are going out with masks, right? It's not like, oh no, I forgot to put on my mask. Now I'll be seen as a hypocrite if I'm not wearing it. No, they're establishing a two-tier system. Aristocrats don't have to follow the rules. That's what it's about. None of this is hypocrisy, right? When John Kerry talks about, John Kerry put it actually as close as you can come to being true. Right. He said, when he was talking about his private jet, when reporters were asking him about if there wasn't something hypocritical since he was out there as the, climate envoy, said, no. For someone in my position to do the important stuff I need to do, I need that. Right. That's their idea about themselves. They're special. They're the aristocrats of spirit. This is what they need. The rest of you are plebes. You are not. You're not on our level. Don't even ask. The masks are for you, and by the way, you should wear 3 of them. Okay. So no, the point is that's precisely the point. They want us to know. And this, I know a lot of people are speaking today on social media and elsewhere about this Time magazine article where they're actually describing how they fortified the election, right? It's to say we did it, right? That's part of the power, to say we did it and there's nothing that you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. So yes, certainly they want us to know.
So going back into history, what you're saying, and I really didn't think about it until because I think of that image of Stroke, however you say his name, when he was testifying, and he was clearly kind of hostile in the way he presented himself, right? If that's how I recall him. I think about wars. I think about wars a lot because it's so much a part of history, and I kind of love war, and I love innovation that happens with war. I'm an venture capital, right? Is that so you see that the aristocrats, these kind of sovereign nobles, right? These hereditary nobles, that they're trying to demoralize the plebs. Is that what they're trying to do?
Yeah, that's a very big part of it, right? To establish, look, we talk about, I actually don't believe there's two tiers of justice. I believe that, again, I believe there is no longer a justice system. I believe that what we call a justice system now is just used to punish their enemies, right? That's what that is. But there are different tiers of things. There are different class tiers. There's one class. Look, I mean, with Gavin Newsom, it was very clear. It was very obvious, right? He went to a restaurant. I've never been, but I've heard about it. I know that people wait years to get a table at that restaurant, right? French Laundry. So he goes there. I mean, he's the governor. Of course, he's going to be photographed. Of course, someone's going to get him, right? Same with all of these people. They know that they're being watched all the time. So why do something as dopey as take off the mask?
So why
because
do
that's the point.
Why do that?
Because that's the point. Because they are establishing a caste system. These are people who can get away with whatever they want. These are people to whom the rules that they impose on others do not apply. And why would they? Look, and I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense from a certain logic of conflict, right? Why would you impose on your friends what you want to impose on your enemies, right? You reward your friends, you punish your enemies. So again, the idea that that you're going to treat your enemies the same as you're going to treat your friends the same way you treat your enemies, that makes no sense by the logic of conflict. By the logic of a constitutional republic, it has no place. It's very dangerous, and that's where we are. That tells you where we are. We're in the midst of conflict. We're no longer living according to the logic of a constitutional republic.
It's interesting because in order for me to better understand this moment, right? Because I'm collecting so much information, and I'm very worried about getting kind of lost in the intricacies of my own creation, right? Because I'm doing so much that I've had to read a lot of philosophy so that I can make sense of everything, right? Because there's just so much. Yeah. And I've been reading Plato, Aristotle, everything, right? Mm-hmm. And I've had Darren Beatty correct me on Hobbes, which was really cool. That was good. I've had Paul Gottfried correct me on to distinguish between a monarch and an authoritarian, a more vigorous type of totalitarian type of regime. And both of us want one of them, by the way. We want law and order kind of, and but I've had to make sense of all of this. And one thing that I've really discovered, which I never really thought of, I'm rereading a lot of this stuff, is these sovereigns, the elites, kind of one of them, right? So it's kind of weird, but they really do hate the plebs. This is nothing new. It's not just a snobbery elite. I don't want to go into the same restaurant with them, which is what it is. It's not a good thing, but it is what it is. But there's actual bloodthirsty contempt. Right.
I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, this is a constant. This is sort of a constant throughout history, of course. What I think makes us different is that a lot of our elites come. I mean, I saw this very clearly in New York. I saw the number of people who would come from outside of New York and who would move to New York, and their main struggle was against their family back home in Ohio, or Wyoming, or Georgia, or wherever. They were eager to differentiate themselves from what they perceived were the rubes back home, right? This is the big struggle. So this is one of the things that we're seeing here. These are actually, in many cases, I've heard other people put like this intra-white struggles, right? They're intra-white family struggles. So that makes it a little different. The other thing that makes it different is the level of education of our elite. I mean, these people are shamefully dumb. I mean, shamefully stupid.
Some
right?
of them.
I mean, this is.
We have some good elite. I had this conversation with Paul Gottfried, just him and I, and you know, it's interesting because I was also kind of disgusted by our elites. And somebody asked a question here, so we're going to go on to it. And he said, no, our elites, were many of our intellectuals, right, are just as great as history's ever produced. It's just that
they've what?
They're just as good. Our elites or some of our intellectuals are just as good as has ever been produced. Some of them, that is. It's just that they're evil.
Which ones?
We didn't go down.
Paul Krugman. I mean, who? I mean, I'd love to know. I'd love to know names because that would change my perspective. If someone was able to say, "Look, there's a lot of pain in this country right now, and people are very mad. But Lee Smith, you need to bear down and realize that some of these people are absolutely brilliant. And even though you don't like the way they talk about your friends and your ideas, the things that they have done to advance human freedom or science, but they haven't. They're garbage.
Okay,
so garbage. Look at look at who have they helped by doing what?
I know.
What diseases? What they can't even stop. Joe Biden can't even stop. He can't even let people out of the house, right, with a respiratory illness with a 99.99% survival rate. It's not just that they can't cure cancer. These are the most incompetent elites in world history. They're a joke. These people are terrible. We're in Afghanistan for 20 years. Why are we in Afghanistan for 20 years? What have they done? Yes, we used to send men to the moon. Donald Trump, who's not a genius, but he wanted to start up Space Force to give people hope. If you want to say Elon Musk, if you want to say Elon Musk is a great elite, okay, I'll hear that argument. But the rest of them, these people are terrible.
We're going to go on.
Absolutely terrible.
Okay. We're going to go on because there's a lot of questions here. So, Teresa Bob, thank you so much for joining us. And I really like that picture. I wish I could see it a little bit better, but it's a really nice picture. It is, right? So, Teresa Bob, thank you for joining us. Very interested in this also. The planning by the left was a coup used against Trump. Do you feel in your research and all the kind of investigations that you did, right, this pursuit of truth, do you feel it was solely left?
No, there were lots of people on the right who were involved, you know. And as I said, I mean, I have lots of qualifications with the phrase "the left" because these are, you know, I mean, these are corporate media operatives. This is not the left. That's not what we Americans know as historically the left. But no, definitely. I mean, there were lots of people on the right who were involved. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we know there's a trail. John McCain handed the dossier off to James Comey, you know, and then we heard all this stuff all the time. Well, Comey is really a Republican. Peter Strzok is really a Republican. Robert Mueller is really a Republican. Are they? I mean, yeah, sure. It's not just Democrats. There are lots of Republicans who went after Donald Trump, and there are lots of Republicans who are full of contempt for Americans. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's not just the left, and that's why now 75 million Americans are so vulnerable because there's virtually no one who's willing to step up and protect these Americans who are being targeted by these morally depraved creeps.
So we're going to go on. Thank you so much. And I'm going to click this. So Harry Doggood, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to know what that picture is of because that's pretty cool. And it's an interesting question. So what would social justice warriors, that's a tricky phrase though, because I've seen some conservative social justice warriors also, right? But what would social justice warriors, considering it's the left, do if they knew about the real behavior of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I mean, I've been following the Middle East for so long, and people have asked that same question regarding the Islamic Republic of Iran. Hey, what would the left do if they found out that actually, you know, the mullahs hang, you know, gay young men from cranes? They execute them. What would they do if they find out that they used rape? Rape is a standard element of torture against both men and women in Evin prison. What would the left say about it? Well, they know. I mean, they read the same papers. They know all this stuff. They know what's happening, and they know what's happening in China and the detention camps the Uyghur detention camps. They know what's been going on in Tibet for nearly half a century.
Now, do you feel
they know?
So Harry Doggett continues in that kind of vein. Do you feel that the staffers of you can kind of pick them, right? Whoever is in Congress and in a Senate. Do you feel that the staffers are just kind of in a bubble, or do they have any type of intellectual inquisitiveness where they say, I want to find out about the Uyghurs, or how does that work?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, in the United States and even in Washington, a city as corrupt as this, there are people who are interested, and there are people who really come here to serve their country, whether they come here working for the United States or working for the United Kingdom. There are people who are actually keen to serve their country. So yeah, I'm sure that there are people who are genuinely interested in knowing things, and I've met many of them, and many of them are very decent people. But I mean, the important thing to remember is the main struggle, the main conflict these people are engaged it's with the American public, right? And we know that. We know that the way they talk about illegal immigration. Look what the Biden administration is saying now. It's like, we can't do anything about COVID. It's devastating. Everyone's going to have to stay locked down longer. But by the way, we're going to open up the gates again and just let illegal immigrants come in immediately. I mean, so is that not a contradiction? Yes, if you see it in terms, again, of the logic of a constitutional republic, but it's not. It's a conflict. So that's how they perceive it. So anything that happens in China or Iran is not that important.
So do you think the minions, the way Harry described it, and I want to be respectful of those people, so I'm not sure if minions, accurately characterizes them, but let's say the lesser staff, the people on down the organizational chart. Do you think that they recognize the vulnerabilities that and the cracks and the fissures that they're creating in kind of the chassis of our republic?
No, I think for the most part they celebrate it. I mean, they know what they're doing. They know who they're working for. I mean, people who are working for Nancy Pelosi, are they surprised when the Speaker of the House does what she does? People who work for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, are they surprised now when she, when she does the stuff she does? They can't possibly be surprised. And,
from your experience, these are just such interesting questions. We're going to go on to this question, but I'm just asking. Yeah. So from your experience in DC, do any of those staffers ever kind of break free from that kind of loop, that self-referential loop that occurs within that, let's say, Nancy Pelosi's office, where you've got 150 staffers, and they're all reminding each other of how they hate Trump, and
right.
Do any of them ever kind of break free of that? Have you seen that?
In the same way it happens in New York, right? The same way it happens in New York. Let's say you're a 27-year-old woman, or you're a 27-year-old man, right? And you're working for an art gallery, or you're working for a publishing house, or you're working for a hedge fund, and you don't have the job you want. You're not making the money you want. You don't have the boyfriend or the girlfriend you want. You don't have the family you want. And you're like, you know what? New York is a big suck. I'm getting out of here. I'm going home. And you have to fight through your friends. Say, don't go home. You're going to come up with a golden ticket any day now. It's the same thing in Washington. People will look around and go like, this is awful. I can't believe I spend my day doing this stuff. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. But lots of people, they fight their entire lives to get here. So yeah, it's rare when they turn around and go like, I can't believe that we've legalized the way for a nuclear weapons program for the Iranian terror state. This is terrible. There are very few people on that side who are saying things like that.
So we're going to go on because I want to be respectful.
I'm running out of electricity. I got to plug this in 1 second. I'm listening. You're just going to lose me from the camera for 1 second.
I'm going to shout out the question then. Actually, I'm going to wait.
All right. I'm listening.
No. I'm going to wait because now I kind of miss you, right? I feel like we're having dinner and you excuse yourself to go to the restroom. I feel like we're having dinner. You excuse yourself to go to the restroom, and now I can either talk to myself or talk as though you're still with me, or I can wait.
Well, that's very nice because most people would just go out, get on their phone and check their text or something like that. But you were polite and you waited. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. It was just a second, and now we're golden again.
So you plugged in your computer. Is that what just happened?
Yes.
Okay. So Rising Serpent, Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Rising Serpent, how you doing? I know Rising Serpent from Twitter. How are you doing?
Rising Serpent is awesome. I'll have them answer for themselves, but I'm very. There's a lot of people that are very cautious about revealing too much of themselves. And frequently they're kind of anonymous, but this is the way they feel they can kind of contribute, and it's also the way they can kind of solve puzzles and kind of help a very fragmented reality.
Yeah, it's great. Look, one of the things I say, so I'm gonna kind of answer Rising Serpent's question while praising Rising Serpent and others as well.
The question, just so people know, in case they're not visually.
Oh yeah, okay. From Rising Serpent, how do you see journalistic freedom or the lack under the Biden administration affecting your work? So I'll say, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I don't see any effect so far yet. I mean, they're going after conservative publishing. They're going after, they're going after conservatives on Twitter, certainly. So this is very bad. The larger issue, I think, is the actual media environment. And so I've said many times that as awful as social media can be, one of the great things that's happened on social media, and I learned this writing about the collusion conspiracy stuff, russiagate. I learned that just like the different people on Twitter, the amount of research they did and the amount of different things they knew, the documents they were able to read, I know that it made my work not only easier and fuller, but more pleasurable too, to meet different people, to be able to, converse with different people, even DMing and get information. So I know that, look, I mean, it's a bad media environment now generally, but there are also upsides. And that's one of the upsides of social media.
So do you feel, I remember I've always supported journalism, and I think I've boasted about it because I'm so proud, and I've lost my good friend, Reece Schonfeld, who co-founded CNN with Ted Turner. He used to be the CEO.
Right. I know his son very well, Oren. You know Oren?
Yes.
Oren was a classmate of one of my brothers in
Dartmouth. He went to
grammar school.
Right? He went to Dartmouth?
I'm talking about grammar school when he was growing up in New York.
That's so funny. I do know.
Oren's a very good guy.
Yeah. It's such a wonderful family. I love Reece, and I miss him. I miss his body so much with me. And his cat. We lost his cat recently. But I saw during Obama's terms, Obama's years, that all the people from the Mother Jones and all the people from the nation, because I know Kat, you bumped into Kat a couple of times yourself, Katrina, who grew up in Dakota and grew up with a very wealthy family. But she's a smart person. She's wonderful. We know Kat is wonderful.
I worked for her mother, Jean Stein, for a little bit.
Oh, did you? Yeah. So she's about as good as it gets, right? But I saw them during the Obama administration, and I would speak with my friends who were the journalists there. And they were like, listen, we can't criticize the Obama administration. We cannot report on these stories. And there was like this self-censorship. Do you see that now that
with Biden?
Do you see that? Yeah. Do you see kind of like a return of that like extreme self-censorship?
Well, it's not. Excuse me. I've had this cough for a couple of weeks now, but no one should be worried. It's not COVID. It's not even the flu. It's not self-censorship. The media is now nothing but a platform for information operations. So this is what it was under Obama. This is what had happened during Trump. I mean, the Russiagate reporting was not real. This was all garbage. This was all stuff that the FBI and other senior intelligence officials were feeding through the press to target Trump and to target Trump officials. So no, we haven't, the prestige media brands, Washington Post. The Washington Post is actually, they were the biggest problem during Russiagate. But the Post, the Times, CNN, MSNBC, none of these they all bear the same names as real media, as the media brands they came out of, but none of these are real media brands at all. So it's not self-censorship. And they'll continue what they've been doing. There was no break during the Trump years because they're just doing one thing, running information operations. So that's not going to change.
Did you ever, when you were like doing all this, were you ever losing sleep? I mean, it must have been really aggravating. And the difficulty I had, and one of the reasons I appreciate you so much, is because there was so much complexity that a person can't just it's kind of like you go into a movie in the last like 10 minutes of it, you have no idea what's going on, the movie's over and you just have no idea what's going on. Most people trying to understand Russiagate, it's kind of like that bewilderment, right? It's just too complex, deliberately complex.
Yeah. Well, right. One of the things that I found out early that I needed to do was you need to knock everything down to its foundations. So you start with dates and actual facts, but all of the mortar that they built that narrative on, that's what you have to knock down. And that's how you understand it. You can't continue to answer their questions because that's what they wanted. That's the whole purpose. They wanted to shape a narrative. So if you're responding to that narrative at all, you're in trouble and you'll never be able to explain the real facts of what happened. So again, it's about knocking it down to its foundations, which are dates and facts, timelines, essentially.
Here's what I think about a lot, and I guess you do also, right? Maybe America, maybe 80 million Americans do. So Fever Dawn, thank you so much for joining us, and I can't make sense of that. Oh, it's a beautiful German Shepherd, so thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, all right. Very nice.
It is. It is. Thank you so much for sharing that. I've got 2 kitties here, and so Fever Dawn says all of this because Hillary had to run in 2016.
Yeah, exactly. We've been living. Russiagate it means that Americans have had to live in the corrupt, live amid the corrupt fantasies of this cruel and vicious harridan since 2016. Right? Hillary had to run and Hillary had to win. So they had to inject a conspiracy theory into the public sphere. And this is the essential point. The important thing about Russiagate, the way I see it now, is, again, looking at this for more than 3 years, it's not that it's about the corruption of the FBI. There's always been lots of dirty cops. It's not necessarily about the press. What it is, it's a combination of all these things. Look, they did the thing that we hear people do all the time in authoritarian regimes. They inject a conspiracy theory into the public sphere and make everyone believe it. And once you do that, you've driven people crazy. So America's become a crazy country because of that, because of something that's demonstrably, verifiably nonsense.
There's a lot.
Yes, Hillary Clinton must bear the blame for that.
There's a lot of questions here. We're going to rip through them because I know we're pressed for time, and I appreciate everyone's time here.
All right, I'll try to keep it shorter too.
No, don't keep it shorter because we got
just because I have some family obligations, baby and stuff like that.
I will say that I've mapped a lot of like the news in terms of the episodic nature of it, the trends, like the bombardment, very episodic, and I've mapped it against Google Trends, and it's really wild. So we are driving the country crazy. It's schizophrenic, and I don't mean in any way to say anything nasty about those who have mental illnesses or schizophrenia or anything else. But there is this kind of split from reality that's just wild to observe. So and I'm going to try and figure out that name, Manch-o-Gagog?
Mancho-Gagog.
And what a beautiful picture that is of a young girl. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
She's very pretty.
Thanks.
What is Lee's next book?
That's something that Adam and I have been discussing. And maybe I'll have an answer next time I come back on. Again, I'm very interested in following the China story. I call it, but for me, it's not China. I call it the China class. So it's about our elite class that draws all this money, power, and prestige from its relationship to the Chinese Communist Party. So that's one thing that I'd like to focus on. The other thing is, at a certain point, I would like to write the 3rd book and have the 3rd book and what I now see as the Coup trilogy. So thanks for the question, and I hope you'll read them both when they come out.
I'm a big fan, and I remember at one point I tweeted out to you and I tweeted out to Amanda that I think of what you guys have done as the urgency that the FBI, the intelligence agencies, Congress, and the Senate, just the whole political apparatus, drove the Constitution so quickly that they really broke it. I don't know how it can kind of restore what we had. Nobody even remembers anymore what we had.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's why we're heading into dangerous territory. We may disagree on the camps bit, but we're heading into very dangerous. Well, we already are in very dark territory.
We are, and I'm very, very optimistic.
But I see Fever Don's statement here, not really a question, a statement.
But you know what?
We should.
I laughed at first also, but can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I laughed because of the pain, because it's so true.
Yeah.
You know, I see today even like some state is offering a city for sale, and you know, Biden would be one of the great presidents if he just did a Louisiana purchase and purchased Greenland, right? Because we know all the natural resources that are there. We know it's a national interest of ours, but you know, he doesn't do it. It's 1:05, right? We've gone on for an hour and 5 minutes. So I want to do a time check with you, Lee.
I need to go in 5 minutes at 8:40.
Okay, so we've got a lot of questions. So I'm going to rip through them. So Cynthia, thank you so much. She says, where is the GOP anger on the FBI and the airlines, Bank of America?
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. That's what I'm saying. Half of the country, at least half of the country, is left defenseless. There is no one who is sticking up for half the Americans who voted for Donald Trump, who they want to label as domestic terrorists. It's shameful. You'd think that's what the Republican Party would do at least. Instead, they're doing stuff like defending Liz Cheney. Great, fantastic, great. Yeah, it's terrible.
I'm going to show you something really quickly. I'm going to leave this comment up here because I don't want to lose the comment. I'm going to show you something. Let me just find it, because this is absurd. So just listen to this. It's about a minute long. And then you got to answer that question down there. But I'm going to leave that question up there because I don't want to lose it.
Okay.
Yes. They could still do it. But let's remember. Yeah. Let's remember that they were able to put forth a Supreme Court justice within a week. They can still do it. There's nothing in the Constitution that prevents them from impeaching, convicting, and removing for January 20th.
On that note, you should be treating these domestic terrorists.
He's not going to be.
Sorry, I can't. It's hard to.
That's all right.
I just think we need to treat the domestic terrorists the way we do actual terrorists. I think we need to consider all possibilities. I'm not against sending these people to Gitmo, and that may sound extreme. These are domestic terrorists who attacked our own republic. They should be treated the same way we treat Al Qaeda.
I think so.
Is that insane?
It's disgraceful.
It is.
And it's disgraceful.
Yeah. So in response, you know, I saw, and I just told my wife also about the Bank of America thing with, you know, getting everyone's records and scraping them for their. It is disgraceful, and there's no outrage. There's no outrage from the Republicans, from the GOP. That's why when people ask me who I'm upset with, and they really want me to call one or two people out, I'm upset with kind of an industry of the conservatives, like the industry of it, because
it's pathetic.
So this is
what they should be.
No, you were going to say.
Thank you. Excellent article, Lee. I'm embarrassed to say something flattering myself. Thank you, Kresmeen. Excellent article, Lee. The 30 tyrants combine this with a time admission and connect the dots. Yeah, a lot of people have been speaking about that today. And the way I see it is, my article explains why they did it. Yeah.
Just because I want to make sure that everybody, in case they weren't with us in the beginning, has a chance to understand your article. Could you be responsive to it, beginning to, and you know, just so everyone has a chance? To
right. No, I mean, I speak about that. I speak about the relationship between the American corporate, political, and cultural elite and the Chinese Communist Party, and how that's their center of gravity. That's what's really important for them. And so, yes, that goes together with this Time magazine article, which explains how they fortified the election. Actually, they're softballing how they defrauded American voters, and how they violated the Constitution in lots of different places. That explains how they did it, and it rationalizes. What my article explains is why they did it, and that's to protect, again, their money and their power. Again, the source of which right now is the relationship to China.
It was an excellent article, and I'm such a history buff, and I really understood it so well, not just because I love the history and I have a kind of context of it, but you can kind of see, you can just kind of look at all these moments in history and say we're right back where we started, and how quickly it's all fallen apart. And okay, so we're going to close up in just a few minutes. Watch this.
I've actually got to go. I've actually got to go right now.
Okay, that's perfect then. So you know what? I was going to show a clip from the movie. But I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to just post it online. Okay.
All right. Yeah. That's great. That's exciting.
Okay. So, but you don't have time for that, do you?
I don't. Okay. I've really got. I'm being summoned. It's a family event.
Yeah. No. You're awesome.
I'm sorry.
And,
thank you, Adam. This has been great.
I've had a really good time, and I want to thank everybody as well for just allowing us to spend this time on your feed.
It was fantastic. I hope we'll get to do it again before too long.
We're going to do part 2. You promise part 2.
That'll be excellent. Just let me know when. I'll be ready.
So much fun, and I want to thank everybody else as well. And everybody, thank you again for letting us be the guest on your feed, and have an awesome night and an awesome weekend.
Thank you very much. Thanks again, Adam. Thanks all your listeners. Bye.